have been achieved. For example, in Africa, statistics talk of significant decline of FGM in some countries or even regions. But at the same time, it's hard not to think about the unspeakable violations that are now being committed on girls, especially in Iran and in Afghanistan, including the denied right to education for girls, or the alarming number of child marriages, also in Afghanistan and in Iran, where, as Kadi reminded us, girls have barely hit puberty while men are much, much older. And also the COVID pandemic has also worsened gender inequalities. So fighting gender-based violence, including FGM and child marriage, has been at the heart of the work of No Peace Without Justice and also of our partners, GAMS and Collectif Laïcité. And what we have learned is that multiple violations happen at the same time, and all share common roots in patriarchal grounds. And all are also a concern for our countries and Europe, and of course worldwide. So No Peace Without Justice, together with the activists and other organizations of the civil society, has been conducting campaigns and specific projects, which included political and institutional advocacy, but also awareness raising and training. And we have been working in African countries, but also at the European level and within European Union countries. And we have always worked to establish a legal and policy framework to prevent and condemn harmful practices. And because it's our belief that laws and policies are essential to change the perception on those practices, which are often perceived as part of culture. It is also essential to prompt social change, but also to provide activists with more leverage and protection while they're working in the field. And we value especially the collaboration of activists and organizations working on the ground. And today we will also hear the testimony of two of our longtime partners and friends from Gambia and Sierra Leone. And within their work, a priority in this common path that we are working together. However, it is clear that the law alone is not sufficient to effectively contribute to preventing and tackling human rights violations that are deep-rooted in the social fabric, such as FGM or child marriage. And it's fundamental to continue working on information and awareness raising on a large scale, to train professionals, to empower youth, to develop an intergenerational dialogue and invest in education, and involve also survivors and communities. And while working in Europe, what we have seen is that data collection on violence against women, and especially in the case of FGM and child marriage, could be highly improved. And the lack of data, in our opinion, is a sign of the low degree of political attention and commitment to the issues at stake. National legal and policy frameworks often lack of a gender perspective and are not fully compliant with the highest standards of human rights. Multi-agency cooperation for prevention and victim support is not effective, aside from some positive local initiatives we have encountered. And professionals are often untrained or sometimes unaware about how to tackle harmful practices or, more in general, gender-based violence. The general public is not aware of how such practices are a grave form of gender-based violence or a human rights violation, and are not aware also of their role in preventing such practices. Youth is lacking education and sexual and reproductive health, and the victim support services are largely underfunded. So many of these issues are mainly left to the initiatives of civil society organizations, and there is an evident lack of engagement of governments and institutions. So we believe that it's time for national and international institutions to engage more in concrete actions to really make changes sustainable and to allow results obtained not to be lost over time. And it's evident that effective approaches are central to implement. So assuming this, it becomes more and more crucial that institutions and policymakers keep the dialogue alive with the field and vice versa, to elaborate innovative solutions, to increase cooperation, to improve policies and practices that would help prevent forms of gender-based violence, including female genital mutilation and child marriage. So I stop here and I give the floor to our chair. Thank you very much.
We co-chair this panel. And I think we have set the scene. Before to go on the panel, one of our MEPs that are with us has asked me to speak now because she has another engagement. So, with great pleasure, I give the floor to Frances Fitzgerald, member, EPP member of Women's Committee and of the Please, Frances. Thank you. Just a second.
You need this one. Yes. Good afternoon, everyone. Frances Fitzgerald. I'm an MEP from Dublin. And this is an issue that we've worked on in Ireland, originally when I was chair of the National Women's Council and subsequently as Minister for Justice in Ireland and now as an MEP. So I'm delighted to work with my colleagues here to do whatever we can in the European Parliament in relation to this issue. A few comments first, sort of general comments. I think, first of all, we have to be very aware that the broader approach to equality, that we have seen many who wish to really stop progress and move backwards. And we have to be very aware of that in a general way. And FGM gets impacted by that, the same as every other equality issue. So I would say we make no apology whatsoever for having to fight very hard to make sure that this issue is on the agenda in an appropriate way and gets the level of appropriate response that it should get, because it never ceases to amaze me that it's not higher up the priorities, both of member states and internationally, although we have obviously recognised the progress that has been made to date, and I think it's very important to do that. But we do also have to recognise that post-COVID, there are some issues in relation to equality, because we saw quite a few retrograde steps during COVID in relation to this issue and many other equality issues. So we have to be and continue to be, I think, very alert and work in networks like this and elsewhere and make sure we call attention to girls' human rights. I was in Beijing when Hillary Clinton said women's rights are human rights. And, it's probably hard for the younger members here today to believe that that sounded quite revolutionary at the time. And how many years later are we saying girls' rights are human rights? And again, I think it's a phrase we need to make sure is heard more internationally than it has been. And it's a very good motto for us to have and to work towards and to increase awareness and with everything that means. I'm going to focus at this meeting on one or 2 points. The first one is I want to bring to your attention the new directive on violence against women, because it is very relevant to FGM. Many of you will probably be, I see a lot of nodding heads. I'm one of the rapporteurs on it, a co-rapporteur with my colleague Evan Inser, who's from Sweden. And we've had meetings with the Commission just today, actually, on it. And we're co-rapporteurs. And that's going to be coming through the Parliament, I hope, over the next 6 months or so. The Commission published it in March 22. And what's very important about this directive for member states and also extraterritoriality is that it supports the victims of FGM by making changes in 3 critical areas. That's prosecution, sentencing, and the provision of supports. And this is all dealt with in the definitions in the new directive. And this is for across all of the member states, obviously, because it is a directive. The directive establishes extraterritoriality, pronounce it properly, jurisdiction for member states when dealing with acts of FGM. I think that's important. If the offence is committed in a third-party country, the member state may have jurisdiction if it is committed against one of its nationals or habitual residents in its territory, or if the offender is a habitual resident in the territory. And I think it's a critical step really in the right direction, and it allows many more victims to gain access to justice, and it closes a fairly significant loophole in the current legal framework surrounding FGM. And it also makes important changes regarding FGM sentencing. It makes recommendations for rape. It's a stronger definition of rape, and it also talks about the minimum of maximum sentencing and suggests quite significant sentencing. And it also allows for aggravating circumstances to be taken into account by judges. And that means when an act of FGM is committed, the weight of the law comes down on these perpetrators, which can act, of course, as a deterrent to future offenders. And it also talks about a whole support system that's needed. Now, I know it's a long way from having a directive to actually ensuring that it's implemented in national law and that the support service is built up. But I think it's going to be a very powerful weapon for us to be able to use across Europe in terms of building the kind of support services that are needed, the consistent support sentence, and to make sure that it is widespread across our member states. So I really wanted to, mention that directive, because I think don't take it for granted that will get support from the member states. There is already resistance from council saying that these issues are not covered under the treaty. Cybersecurity is also in it. They're saying that is covered, but they may well have a very nuanced view. So there will be a legal report published in the next few weeks. So do keep an eye out for that, because I think we'll have to work together to make sure that these issues are taken as seriously as they need to be at European level. So that's my main point, really. I think some of the other points I would make, I know my colleague has already spoken about the scale of the issue. I think everybody here knows it, both around the world and across Europe. And we also know that it has to be seen as a gross violation of human rights and a form of violence against women. I think we have to watch out, and I'm sure it's been mentioned already, for the growing medicalisation of FGM. That's a pretty critical issue in relation to doctors and information education with our national medical and nursing organisations. I think there's quite an information educational job to be done there, and that's very important because, of course, if you have their involvement, it's giving a legitimacy to FGM. A final point, I think we need to ensure that survivor-led organisations are involved in policy and decision-making. I didn't get to hear people who spoke earlier here, but I'm always just so very pleased that we have women who are willing to speak out, who've had direct experience. It takes a lot of courage, and I think the organisations who are working and who are survivor-led, we have to integrate more into our support systems and engage with the diaspora of countries where FGM is most relevant. I've made this point before, that at an EU level we have to engage both internally and externally. So, Chair, they are the main points that I wanted to make in my presentation today. But just to say thank you very much for inviting me to be present, and please do consider me an ally wherever I can be. Thank you.
Thank you very much. We consider you are an ally since many years, and we are always pleased to have you in our meeting, and I think that helped to push these issues in the European Parliament and elsewhere. I'm very happy that the European Commission is also here to be part of this event. Now I come back to the organizer, and I give the floor to Jamila Ben Habib, spokesperson for the Collectif Laïcité Yallah. That was created on 12 November 2019 at the initiative of the Centre d'Action Laïque here in Brussels. And so I give you the floor. Please.
Okay, thank you. Merci beaucoup pour cette invitation. Nous sommes véritablement ravis.
Thank you very much. We are really very happy to be here
avec des femmes de terrain, mais aussi des femmes qui sont à la manœuvre pour prendre des décisions. Parce que je pense qu'il faut que les femmes soient à tous les niveaux. Donc, je m'appelle Jamila Ben Habib et je suis donc la porte-parole du collectif Laïcité Yallah. Et je suis accompagnée aujourd'hui de trois membres en fait, de notre collectif, Malika Hardim, qui a une expérience dans les mariages forcés, donc elle a accueilli chez elle assez frais pendant une dizaine d'années des filles et des femmes qu'elle a sauvées de l'emprise familiale et qu'elle a sauvé donc des mariages forcés. Donc elle a cette expertise et cette expérience de terrain extrêmement significative. La deuxième membre de notre équipe est Naila Chihri, qui a une expérience en Allemagne concernant les migrants et les réfugiés de façon générale et qui a œuvré dans l'accueil des immigrants donc, en Allemagne. Donc Naila et Malika, je pense que oui, c'est ça.
In Germany.
Oui, c'est ça.
They're here with me.
C'est ça. Et la troisième membre est Laïlou Massadid, qui est afghane et qui est donc journaliste. Et qui, comme son expérience l'indique, elle vient d'Afghanistan, donc elle a développé toute une expertise s'agissant de l'accueil, évidemment, des femmes afghanes et de la solidarité. Donc nous, au collectif Laïcité Yallah, nous avons deux axes de travail. Le premier axe de travail, c'est la reconnaissance de l'universalité des droits humains. Donc pour nous, il est extrêmement important de répéter que les droits des femmes n'ont rien à voir avec la tradition et la culture et la religion. Que l'universalité des droits des femmes, il faut qu'elle soit reconnue, que l'universalité des droits des femmes, il faut que ce soit respecté, que les petites filles, que les filles doivent avoir les mêmes droits, quel que soit leur lieu de résidence ou leur lieu de naissance. Et nous, évidemment, nous heurtons, mais ça je le dirai plus tard, eh bien, une certaine crispation dans le débat lorsque donc, on revendique l'universalité des droits humains. Et le deuxième axe de travail que nous avons développé grâce à l'expertise évidemment des membres de notre équipe, c'est en direction des réfugiés et des immigrants. Donc, nous avons créé l'année dernière la coordination européenne en solidarité avec les femmes afghanes et cette année nous l'avons élargi donc aux femmes iraniennes. Donc pour nous il est extrêmement important que nous puissions aussi être sensibles avec évidemment aider et accompagner des femmes qui souffrent dans une autre partie du monde mais aussi qui résistent et qui par moments meurent. Et aujourd'hui, j'ai évidemment une pensée particulière pour les Iraniennes. Parce qu'elles sont de plus en plus jeunes à prendre la rue, elles sont de plus en plus jeunes à refuser l'emprise du régime islamique et à se heurter évidemment à la violence et à la brutalité d'un régime qui n'hésite pas à les assassiner. Donc je remercie vraiment donc pour toutes ces raisons et vraiment du fond du cœur, donc toutes ces personnes qui ont organisé cette rencontre, évidemment, nos Peace Without Justice, mais aussi Kadi et Madame Moretti, donc de nous accueillir. Et je voudrais dire aussi en quelques mots à quoi nous nous heurtons lorsque, évidemment, nous développons donc, cette thématique qui est l'universalité, donc des droits humains et la solidarité internationale. On se heurte en fait à un communautarisme ethnique et religieux de plus en plus présent dans les grandes villes occidentales. Et là, je ne parle pas seulement de Bruxelles, mais je parle aussi de Paris, puisque j'y habite, enfin j'y ai habité, mes parents y habitent, je parle de grandes villes comme Berlin, je parle d'une grande ville comme Rome, donc il y a un communautarisme ethnique et religieux qui malheureusement ne fait pas en sorte que les gens se mélangent, mais font en sorte que les gens vivent exclusivement dans une communauté et n'en sortent pas. Donc ça, c'est un véritable obstacle à l'émancipation des petites filles, des filles et des femmes. Et je fais une distinction entre les trois, entre les petites filles, entre les filles et entre les femmes. Et ce que l'on voit aujourd'hui, c'est qu'il y a de plus en plus de filles et de femmes isolées qu'on n'arrive pas à atteindre. Nous en avons discuté souvent avec Adi, comment aller chercher ces femmes. Nous voyons aussi dans ces grandes villes européennes où, comme dirait Malika, pratiquement tous les droits nous sont acquis. Des petites filles à peine âgées de 6, 7 ans, 8 ans, que déjà elles sont emmitouflées, que déjà elles sont voilées. Pour nous, c'est un problème. Nous n'acceptons pas le voilement des petites filles parce que ça les prépare à la soumission, ça les prépare à accepter un mariage forcé ou un mariage arrangé, ça les prépare à des violences sexuelles. Donc pour nous, c'est un indice, c'est un signal. Et je dois dire qu'au sujet des prises de position de la Commission européenne et des prises de position du Conseil européen, nous n'avons pas été très impressionnés par les positions et de la Commission et du Conseil concernant des campagnes qui sont ouvertes comme ça pour banaliser le port du voile islamique. Donc je pense que nous sommes sur un terrain qui est sensible et que nous devons faire extrêmement attention au signal que l'on envoie. Donc, pour nous, la liberté, elle est dans la tête, mais elle est aussi dans le corps. Que la liberté de la tête, évidemment, se confond avec la liberté du corps et que les filles ont le droit à avoir les deux libertés. On doit les préparer aussi à accepter leur corps parce que lorsqu'on les invisibilise, eh bien, on ne les prépare pas à accepter leur corps dans ces multiples dimensions.
Wearing the veil,
Il y a
girls must be accepted and must be recognized the right to accept their bodies as
la
a whole.
première conviction, c'est
Now,
que
today we have three main beliefs.
nous voulons aller
The
encore
first
plus loin
is
dans ce
that if
combat,
you want
nous
to
devons fédérer
progress
le
even further
plus
in this
d'associations possible.
fight, we need to
Donc,
federate as many associations
vers le
as
bas.
possible.
Donc fédérer
They
le
need
bas.
to be
Pour nous,
federated
il est
from the
extrêmement
grassroots.
important que nous
To us,
développions
this is extremely
des
important.
partenariats
It is
avec des
crucial
associations
to
de tous
develop
les horizons
partnerships
qui ont
with
évidemment à cœur
associations
ce
from
projet-là d'émancipation
all
des filles et des
clouds.
femmes.
Ma
Ma deuxième conviction
young
est à
women
l'effet
and
qu'il
girls
y a des confusions
be
aujourd'hui dans le
empowered.
débat et Kadi l'a très bien soulevé. Malheureusement, nous nous heurtons à des générations qui confondent ce qu'est la tolérance et la liberté, qui confondent la tolérance avec l'intolérance.
Tolerance and intolerance are equally
finalement,
confused or
on a des concepts
misinterpreted.
qui veulent nous faire croire que l'aliénation est une forme de liberté. Or, l'aliénation ne sera jamais la liberté. Que l'on s'entende bien là-dessus, et il ne peut y avoir aucune raison invoquée pour légitimer une aliénation quelle qu'elle soit. Ma troisième conviction, c'est de créer des synergies entre le haut et le bas. Nous avons besoin de plus de synergie entre des femmes qui décident et des femmes qui agissent sur le terrain. Et là, je finirai sur une note
female decision
positive.
makers
Le 9
women
décembre
who
à
act
Bruxelles,
in the
grâce
field.
au tissu associatif absolument incroyable que nous avons, mais grâce aussi à l'écoute du haut, c'est-à-dire à l'écoute de Lydia Eschvin à l'égalité des chances, nous organisons une journée pour célébrer l'universalité des droits humains à l'occasion de la journée internationale donc des droits humains pour dire que les droits des petites filles sont aussi des droits humains, que les droits des femmes sont aussi des droits humains. Donc voilà, je vous invite cordialement à venir nous rencontrer, à venir parler à nos événements. Donc, si jamais vous avez un petit peu de temps à nous consacrer, si jamais vous voulez nous transmettre des choses que vous voulez dire, des vidéos ou n'importe quoi. Et là, je vois beaucoup de jeunes aussi. L'invitation s'adresse aussi à tout le monde, à vous aussi, évidemment. Donc, n'hésitez pas, on fera circuler l'information. Et donc, voilà, je pense que j'ai tout dit.
I think I have covered everything, and I haven't actually congratulated GAMS on its 40th anniversary. So with Isabelle, I met Isabelle a long time ago.
Mais de la solidarité à l'égard des réfugiés.
Not only women's rights, but also solidarity vis-à-vis refugees were
sensibles à cette question de la solidarité internationale et de la solidarité internationale
claims. So we are particularly aware of international solidarity, namely solidarity
et toute ma reconnaissance
towards
pour le
women.
travail
Therefore,
incroyable
I
que
really
vous
wish
menez sur
to
le terrain.
acknowledge the formidable work that is carried out by Isabelle in the field.
Merci beaucoup. Et justement, effectivement, alors la parole avec grand plaisir, je la donne maintenant à Isabelle Gillette-Fayet et à ses 40 ans d'activité du GAMS. Et j'ajoute à ces 20 ou 25 ans de travail commun avec nos filles Fidel qui sont dans beaucoup d'occasions. Et j'imagine avec beaucoup d'autres organisations présentes autour de cette table, beaucoup de députés. Donc, ton témoignage va nous marquer également pour le bilan que tu peux nous donner un petit peu, même en bref, évidemment, de la période écoulée.
We kindly ask Miss Demar to switch off her mic because it interferes with
avec
interpreters.
grand succès ont pu être menées il y a longtemps, sont maintenant à un moment dans lequel il faudrait presque les recommencer tant la situation risque de bousculer en arrière. Merci beaucoup en tout cas d'être ici avec nous.
That risks really making a leap forward. So I'll give you the floor very willingly.
Tu dois l'avoir quelque part, en montant, en descendant. Là, dans les roses.
Merci beaucoup. Merci de votre
accueil. Thank you very much.
Thank you for welcoming me here, and thank you for this very beautiful organization. I should like to thank Cathy for her initiative of this marvelous project. Mais je connais effectivement autour de cette table un certain nombre de députés européens,
justice. I can see many MPs and members of the European Council with whom we have been cooperating for quite a long period of time. So thank you very much for celebrating with us this 40 years. As Candy said, I joined a little bit later, and I was received by marvelous awesome.
Quand vous avez la chance de rencontrer des Nafissatou Fall, quand vous avez la chance de rencontrer des Kumba Touré, et quand vous avez la chance de rencontrer des Kadi Diallo, et je ne peux pas toutes les citer,
others, because I cannot mention all of them. You realize that you grow up, but you do not grow up like all other European women, because when I met them, I was about 22, 23, now 55, but I can assure you that their teaching has really been great to me for the accompaniment and for the work of accompanying young girls and child girls. And I really cherish this because when we talk about child girls' rights, we realized some 10 years ago that both on the European level and in international level alike, we had specific actions for children. We have specific actions for women, but there was a hole, and this hole was these young girls, these child girls, these teenagers. Now, of course, in some regions of the world, people tell you these are not teenagers, but they are women. So the teenager stage is skipped through marriage, through excision. So this question of adolescence, pre-adolescence, puberty, and the age before puberty, these are ages, stages of life in Western countries, because there are many traditions, there are many cultures that do not consider these stages of one's life as being important. And before COVID-19, we all of us, we were very proud to say thank you. Thanks to our holistic, integral approaches, and thanks to integration, we obtained that both boys and girls were on an equal footing in primary education, and this was already a success because you can see that also if we go up in the scale, the number of women is reduced. In France, for example, there are women that die every day due to violence against women. So it's not a question of studying, of education, because there are illiterate women that are able to cross our countries without speaking Italian, German, French, and are able to protect their daughters and their children. So they are able to stand every situation, even without speaking the language, and so without passports. And one lady I met was able to save her daughter from a forced marriage, and this dad decided that this was not the case, and he took the child, and he was afraid of driving his car because he didn't want his daughters to be taken to be forcibly married. Both parents were from Mali, they were Malian, and well, yes, there's the strength of community, of communalism, there's the strength of religion. But when it's a question of violence against child girls or teenagers or women, we have to continue to develop this integral approach, this holistic approach, because when we are faced with violence against women, there should be a culture of protecting women.
Jamila vient d'évoquer la question du voile.
Somebody mentioned the issue of veil, of female genital mutilations, and the list of violence against women would be longer and longer. So we need to develop a culture based on consensus.
Il faut comprendre qu'il y a
Sorry to say, but it's impossible to translate. There's too much noise.
On parle des droits basés sur le genre. J'ai envie qu'on parle de l'application des droits basés sur le genre.
Speaking of gender-based violence, we need to develop rights based on gender. We have men and women fighting on the spot at the local area, fighting. When we see what is happening in Afghanistan, in Iran, well, yes, you can see a 8-year-old child and there's a dad saying, I'm selling my 8-year-old girl to a very aged man because so the rest of my household, the rest of my family can live, can eat. So for example, in Iran, you see these women fighting under a very violent and harsh regime, and they are very courageous, but they have courage, an unprecedented courage. And Gadi explained when women in the 80s stood up to say nobody will touch our daughters, will touch our sisters, nobody will touch our child girls. Well, this was very difficult because they were not heeded. They were attacked, they were insulted in unprecedented manner. But today they are recognized that they were brave enough, they were courageous enough, and we should not wait another 20 or 40 years to recognize the courage of these women that are fighting everywhere on all levels. And among them, there are mainly young girls of less than 20 years to mount on barricades, and they do whatever they can, even at the age of 11 or of 12, to say they are holders of rights. In Senegal, adolescents, teenagers have taken the floor and went to see the mothers and grandmothers to convince them, and also to convince other young ladies and other child girls not to accept mutilations. With COVID-19, we've lost a part of our power, but this post-pandemic era will give us the opportunity of saying that when say human rights, we include child rights, child girls' rights, women's rights, and we only consider in our country the human rights country, because in France we have a lot of work to be done. So whatever you can do to help us people understand, our politicians understand, that the whole of society understand that we want to talk of human rights without excluding anybody from these human rights. This would be very, very good news. And I would like to thank you as of now for doing so. Thank you.
Et j'ai lu qu'à un moment donné, pour justifier le fait que Mme Roland prenait la parole dans une assemblée, on avait dit finalement, puisque les pères dans un concile ont finalement reconnu que même les femmes ont une âme, donc à ce moment-là, elle peut bien parler à la Convention. C'était la Révolution française. On a du chemin à faire. Bon, maintenant on a deux témoignages
Now we have two
vidéo
witnesses, a very important one. These are on video, and after which I should like to hand over the presidency to Kadi. So I should like to invite you to listen to the founder and director of Amazonian Initiative Movement, AM.
A local Amazonian, but in reality it's a local organization working to end MGF in Sierra Leone. So I don't know why it's called Amazonian, but there must be a reason. Please.
My name is Rugia Tunedetue, founder and director of Amazonian Initiative Movement. AIM is an organization that works with women and girls to end the practice of female genital mutilation and other harmful traditional practices, such as early marriage, rape, and teenage pregnancy. AIM, through the support of partners, has been able to save young girls who are forcefully forced into marriages and raped. We have also pursued practitioners who forcefully initiate young girls into FGM. With our work, we have been able to provide solutions to end FGM by introducing what we call the bloodless rites, to uphold our Bondo culture, which is a rite of passage for young girls into womanhood. So this day, we have organized 2 bloodless rites in Port Loko and Tonkolili, respectively. We want to scale up with this work to other parts of the country. And with our work, we have been able to remove sacred bushes and replace them with schools in hard-to-reach areas. These are areas where girls have no opportunity of going to school. This we have been able to do because out of our research done, it came out clearly that women continue to practice FGM in our locality out of ignorance. So we believe one way for a sustainable change to uphold culture is to make sure we improve and empower girls through education. So in remote areas, we have built schools. And as we continue, we look into the health complications of women who have gone through FGM, have faced rape, and have given birth at an early age. So health is another way we are addressing all these menace. We are asking for continuous support to be able to change social norm and uphold our culture, as this is our vision for a Sierra Leone. We want to see a Sierra Leone free from FGM.
Voilà qu'est-ce qu'on peut appeler un témoignage de terrain.
Ah oui, exactement. C'était tôt le matin, je crois.
Mais, oui, tôt le matin. Mais un coq, bon,
voilà. Il
proteste un peu. Rujatu, je dois vous signaler que, comme vous l'avez peut-être vu dans le programme, que Rujatu a été nommée en 2016, je ne sais pas si elle est encore, ministre adjoint de Social Welfare, Gender and Children Affairs. So, c'est quand même un témoignage de terrain de quelqu'un qui a pu, en tout cas, disons, aller au niveau ministériel pour les batailles qu'elle nous a présentées. Maintenant, la parole à Isatou Touré, aussi une autre grande amie de No Peace Without Justice, qui a été militante, et toujours militante de l'organisation malienne contre les pratiques... Gambienne, contre les pratiques traditionnelles, mais qui était aussi, jusqu'il n'y a pas longtemps, vice-présidente de la République de Gambie. Donc voilà la parole à Isatou Touré avec son vidéo. Please.
I am very pleased to be given these opportunities, dear friends, fellow activists and philanthropists. This is to inform you that I am back to base and re-engaging with the issues we have all been working on in promoting women's sexual and reproductive health rights, human rights, women and children's rights in the realm of sexual and reproductive health rights, among others. GAMCO-TRAP has been involved in advancing women's human rights and engaging with networks to call for gender equality, joining the community of nations to ensure that women have the enabling space to be able to fulfill their dreams and be equal partners in all spheres of development. I'm a co-founder of GAMCOTRAP, and I decided to leave at one point in 2016 to join the Gambian society and go in as the first female presidential candidate, because we had an authoritarian regime and it was not an enabling environment for human rights activists to work, particularly in the field of sexual and reproductive health. Women's sexuality were being controlled, they were being arrested, they were being denied access to radio, they were being devoid of anything to self-actualize. And I felt that we cannot condone that type of environment, and I decided to go in as a presidential candidate. Having gone as separately, we decided to have a grand coalition, and in that grand coalition, our coalition won, and I came to join the government in order to put in place a democratic dispensation. We have done that, and I was able to bring in quite a number of changes in terms of the Bill of Rights that were being ratified by my country, were being harmonized in the laws. A lot of the policies that were being discussed and were reserved, and we decided to move on. But I came to a point where I felt that the feminist agenda is not being portrayed within the framework of this current government. How? We have noted that in the existing parliament, the government has not had a good representation of women in positions, and women and young people have been the most instrumental catalyst in effecting the change in 2016, when I led the coalition at the beginning to move the agenda for change. Now, having done that, a man was picked who led the change, and that is His Excellency President Barrow. I was invited to serve there, and when I served, I realized that the space is still very difficult and it's not creating an enabling environment for women. Why did I want us to bring in this feminist agenda in what we are doing right now? It is very important for the fact that a change politically, socially, and economically is needed for women. And the context of our human rights work resulted in making a shift to create an enabling environment for a democratic dispensation. When I left the organization and started, I thought there was going to be, I would be able to move forward with the process of the gains that were going on. But because it was headed by a man, I have no prejudice against men, but I have seen that the patriarchal space is disabling. When it comes to women's issues, they are not very serious about it. It's just a question of painting. And as an activist working from outside, and having been involved in grassroots activism, and looking at the dynamics within cabinet, I was the vice president. I saw that things that were brought in there, we had to struggle to get them passed. And you need the political will to get the president past them. And sometimes I really have to negotiate. We were only 4 women in cabinet, and it was very difficult. But at the end of the day, we were able to do what we could. The country was able to register during my time, making giant strides in the transition from an authoritarian regime towards a system of governance characterized by peaceful and credible election, a vibrant media landscape, meaningful separation of power, accountability for crimes of the past, and a commitment to national reconciliation and healing. However, this change did not reflect impactful changes for women, as the proportion of women occupying elected office in the country remains consistently very low since 1980s. I was in Beijing in 1995, and when we went there, the statistics has not changed, and it is still stagnant and even worse this time. While women make up more than 50% of the Gambian's population and a full 57% of its registered electorate, women missed out in occupying top political positions. In the April 22 legislative elections, only 8% of candidates were women. Only 3 out of the 19 women who contested were elected, and only one of those represented a political party. The other 2 being independent candidates. This is the same number of women who were elected in the legislative election of 2017, indicating a certain stagnation when it comes to women's political empowerment in the country. The problem exists not only at the level of National Assembly, but at all echelons of elected office in the Gambia. Only 3 out of 22 ministers, that is 13.6% in the current cabinet, are women, down from 21% in the previous cabinet. Only 5 women sit in the cabinet in the current 58-seat National Assembly, that is 8%, down from 10.3% in the previous National Assembly. And only 7% of local councillors in the Gambia are women, a figure that many hope will increase in May 2023 local elections. A systematic marginalization of women in elective positions is noted, drawing attention to the need to improve and increase on the number of women in elective positions. The recent reports released by the IPC, that is the Interparliamentary Committee, on 1st July 2022, shows the monthly global and regional average ranking of women in parliament. The Gambia ranks 167 out of 185 countries globally. The report further revealed Gambia's statistics on women's representation in parliament at 5 women out of total of 158, representing only 8.6%. I believe that the feminist movement have to engage. And I believe that it is very likely that this is the same pattern we are finding in many parts of our, in the continent. We need to engage to rectify this. We need to engage. Men have to give back to women. Women have to stand up. We need the resources. We need the support. We need the skills that will help us move. I have gone in and I have tried for 5 years. I have done everything I could. And during the time, because of the authoritarian nature of the state, it was more of the democratic principles, putting up the pillars, that we were able to achieve. But when it comes to gender equality and closing the gender gap, it's about power, it's about control, it's about decision, and this is where women are missing. We must go in for top political positions. We must also sensitize the women and men to understand that women have a lot to give. They have the skills, they can do it, and I'm a proof of it, and many women too. But we stop at being vices. We stop at being in positions where we cannot make the final decisions. And now I believe my next engagement after the fight against female genital mutilation, which is still going on, and we have the last 8 years to consolidate on those gains, I want to engage in political activism. I have gone in, I've seen how the space is like. I have learned, and I believe that the wealth of experience that I have gained in negotiating those spaces that are highly male-dominated needs to be deconstructed. We need to engage and educate the women and men. The young people don't have any chance, actually, because in the last selection committee that was held, young people were marginalized. I received a letter from a team of young activists complaining about the situation. I am back, I am committed, I am hale and hearty, and I know I'll be able to do it if I have the right resources, and I'm not only appealing on my behalf. There are quite a number of women's rights organizations, feminist organizations, who are trying to close the gender gap and trying to meet the SDGs. We have to engage, and I believe that resources, technically, financially, and all other aspects it takes needs to be given. I would want people to trust women's leadership qualities, to trust the organizations that are fighting for women's human rights and the rights of the vulnerable groups, to be given the opportunity, to be given the resources, to bring in the knowledge they have, and to work together in a global engagement to move forward in our various countries. This is the only way, I believe, that we can move the agenda for women's political representation in elective position. We have a long way to go. When I looked at the statistics from 1994 to date for Gambia, I cannot sit down. I just cannot sleep. I feel that I have to be aggressive in the way I go out to look, to convince those that have the wherewithal in terms of facilitating the work that I want to do with the feminist movement from within the Gambia and across the continent and the world over. Sisterhood is global, and we need to work together to ensure that this moves. When I came back, and my organization needs to reorient itself to the new vision that I have, that I want to move, adding up to the work that we've been doing on sexual and reproductive health rights. We have made impressive gains. We still have to continue to consolidate, but this is a new vision that I am bringing, in which I have come out to serve my country diligently, and I have been removed when the coalition government came to an end, and the new government sets its own political party, and they selected those that they feel they can move with. So I am here. I want to engage. I want to engage in political activism, reaching out to the communities, influencing policy, lobbying, and engaging with the gender ministry so that some of the formal equality that we have, Gambia is committed to that, but it is still not substantive yet because the statistics are speaking, and it's worse even now than before. If you look at the statistics, going by what the statistics are, we need to do enough efforts to do that. And I need everybody to give me the support, to support the feminist movement, to support Gamco Trap in order to do this. We are not new in the advocacy work. We've been on it for 30 years. And Gamco Trap was one of the first organizations that actually worked with different partners to be able to push women's effective participation in politics. And we were able to bring in 15 women in elected positions in the local government elections, supported by different organizations. I am back, and I'm back. I want to re-engage and focus more into political activism and help the women of the world, Gambian women, and the future of the young girls who are taking leadership at the moment. I am hale and hearty, and I want to make the best out of the opportunity that I have to serve women and to serve humanity and to do my best to change the status quo. Thank you.
Rebonjour, je prends la parole, je laisse Gianfranco se reposer un peu.
So once again, I will be chairing. So I make Gianfranco rest a little bit. So we've heard the pioneers who have worked for more than 30 years. And when she said that she would run for candidate, people were very afraid because she was in prison. And so now she's back. And I think that that's her place. We need ladies and women like her on the spot. So let's continue our proceedings. And I should like to hand over. It's quite late.
C'est madame, hein, je crois. Soraya, ça doit être madame.
I should like to hand over to Ms. Soraya.
Madame Soraya
Rodríguez Ramos.
Membre of FEM. What is FEM community? Ah, c'est votre comité là.
Member of FEM. So
très bien.
She's a member of the FEM commission. Over to you, madam.
Être ici avec.
Thank you very much. I appreciate to be here.
En anglais.
But I prefer to speak English, so I move on to English now.
No, it is serious. It is a real pleasure to be here today and to listen all speech. Very, 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 very interesting. It's clear, listening to all contributions before mine, is that we have a long way to go before we can truly speak about the full respect of girls' rights and gender equal societies. Girls today continue to confront a wide range of challenges to fulfill their potential, made even worse by the interlinked crisis of climate change, COVID-19, and conflict. The global situation for girls and women is not a good situation. I would say the global situation now is frightening. We are currently facing a reality where girls' rights and freedoms are being challenged worldwide. Rights which have considered given and consolidated today are in question. We can say that today we are facing a worldwide anti-gender movement. We have seen in the United States, with the recent overturn by the US Supreme Court of the constitutional right to abortion in the country. We have also seen in the European Union with the restrictions to women's sexual and reproductive health and rights in Poland, Slovakia, or Hungary, or with Turkey's withdrawal from the Istanbul Convention in 2021 and the decision of Poland to also follow this decision. We cannot forget that the Iranian women and girls who at this moment are standing up for their rights, and of course Afghan women and girls who are currently living a real hell with no rights and in countries ruled by oppressive and criminal regime. Okay, from the European Parliament, we are working to counter this trend and uphold girls' rights. In Europe, I think we must pave the way for the new generation of women and girls, and girls with an important potential to change the things, but the girls now represent not only our future, but they also have a key role to play in our present. Frances Fitzgerald, after he spoke about the importance now in our work in the FEM committee and the Parliament about the new directive proposal of combating violence against women and domestic violence. Okay, child marriage and female genital mutilation are an important violence against girls and women. And this directive can have to help to fight against this situation. The global data regarding child marriage and female genital mutilation is shocking. Some of the other speakers before me have mentioned some of these figures. Despite significant reductions in several countries in the last years, the figure is terrible. 100 million girls are at risk of child marriage in the next decade. This figure has increased by at least an additional 10 million due to the COVID-19 pandemic impact. In addition, we are also facing a situation where if FGM continues to be carried out at current levels, at least 68 million girls will be subject to it by 2030. This is a figure terrible, but however, there is a social and sometimes political will to change things. There is a better news, a better figures today. A girl is about 1/3 less likely to undergo FGM than 30 years ago. 2 weeks ago, I was on a mission of the European Parliament with my colleagues, Fofana, Pierrette, a mission organized by the FEM committee, focusing among other topics on female genital mutilation. In Ethiopia, 25 million girls and women have undergone FGM, the largest absolute number in Eastern and Southern Africa. However, most people in Ethiopia believe that FGM should stop. The proportion of society, fathers, mothers, teachers, wanting to see the end of FGM has greatly increased since the year 2000. During our mission, we had the opportunity to speak with several women organizations and local NGOs working to end this practice. They are certain that if the government and the other stakeholders continue with their efforts, FGM could be eliminated in the coming years. But it is necessary to achieve this objective, the government to make it a priority. At this moment, it's not the case. Education for girls is also key. Education is the most powerful weapon to fight against violence against women and girls. There is a direct in Ethiopia. We have seen there is a direct correlation between higher levels of education and less likelihood of being a victim of FGM. For example, the number of girls attending primary school has increased in the last year in Ethiopia. But there attends greatly decreases in secondary school. And the gap between enrollment in primary and secondary school is a real problem. Girls not going to secondary school have at least 70% more chance to be victims of FGM or child marriage than the other girls who can go to the secondary school. It is very, very, very important to work in education for girls. And for this reason, it is very important the commitment by the European Commission at the UPLANR with education of girls and the decision to increase EU's investments on education from 7% to 10% in our international partnerships. Okay, it's perfect, but however, the European Union and the international community will fail in their objectives on girls' education if we allow criminal regimes such as the Taliban in Afghanistan to continue closing school and limiting girls' future and freedoms. I would like to finish my terrible speech in English. As United Nations Secretary General Antonio Guterres has stated several times, gender equality is the unfinished business in our time, and so the time is now to change it. Today we have a real opportunity to end FGM and to join our efforts to accelerate investment and uphold the human rights of all women and girls. Let's do it together. Thank you.
Merci beaucoup, merci, thank you. Comme le temps file, je ne vais pas faire de commentaires.
Time passes, so I won't comment on what you said. So I should like to hand over to Irena Musova,
Justice, Equality and Union Citizen.
De la Commission européenne DG Justice, Equality and Union Citizenship.
You have the floor. Thank you.
Indeed, I'm Irena Mosova from the European Commission, from the Directorate General of Justice, and also Director for Equality. But since we have honorable members, so I was of opinion. Okay, she will do the conclusions. So thank you very much for the floor and also for the invitation. In view of the time, so I will just make some remarks. And my first remark goes towards actually this event itself. It only shows how important is to get us together to speak from different angles about the problems which are our joint problems. I think it was Alessandra at the opening when she said that there is potential on the side of European institutions, but there would not be a potential on the side of the European institutions should we not be able to hear the voice of the civil society organizations, of the victims of violence against women, of the people working at the local level, at the local communities, in the national parliaments, but of course in the European Parliament as well. I took a good note also about what I think it was Kadi, you, who said that the situation in Europe is worsening. And I also recall, because it was Soraya who just quoted Secretary General of United Nations, Mr. Gutierrez, who also said, let's push back against the pushback. This was also his words at the Commission on the Status of Women just before the COVID arrived. And just before the COVID arrived, we as a Commission, so we came with the so well-attended strategy on gender equality. You remember that it was just 2 days before the pandemic hit whole Europe. And it was the moment where we have presented a strategy, putting together legislative, non-legislative elements. And also we put in the strategy focus on 3 key areas. First of all, the world, because it has also internal and external dimension, where women and girls can be safe. The world and Europe, where the girls and the women can strive, and also where they can live. And from the many testimonials that we have heard until now, I only recognize how important it is to focus on the education, on the economic empowerment, but also, and we have heard it now from Isatou to Ray, about the leadership. Because without having women in the leadership, being able and capable also to influence the policies, we cannot move ahead. And I'm very much looking forward for the intervention of their dearest colleagues from the Brussels Council and also National Belgian Parliament. Now, what we have also said in the strategy that we will come with the legislative instrument precisely focusing on the violence against women and domestic violence. And I'm very happy that Frances became the best advocate of our draft proposal, because this is a very comprehensive proposal which looks into the whole cycle of the violence against women and domestic violence, from the prevention unto the prosecution, and also focusing on the work with the victims, and in order to give them the necessary support, but also looking even into the situation of the perpetrators, because this is also what we have to do, because we cannot fight against the violence against women, including harmful practices, without involving men. Now, this proposal is a part of the future criminal law at the European level. it has innovative elements like cyber violence and so on, and its focus is also on female genital mutilation. But as Frances said, the life of the European law is long. So from the birth until the adolescence takes some time, and we cannot wait for that. That's why we are working now on the recommendation for the member states in order to focus on such elements that they are already listed in the strategy, but also in this draft legal proposal. So female genital mutilation, forced marriages, but we are going even beyond the scope. And we would like to invite the member states now, already now, so at the moment of presenting this recommendation, to work together with us, with the European institutions, but also with civil societies. I think that it was Isabel who mentioned also the community impact on a certain issue that we are discussing here today. So this is very important for us. And not only, so many of the speakers have spoken about the COVID and the impact on gender-based violence and also and genital female mutilation, because under the confinement, so many things, they became, they went again into the shadow. And it's important to put them on the light. Unfortunately, another crisis, the Ukraine crisis, with millions of refugees, mostly of them women and girls again, so they are facing a difficult situation, and this is also the situation where, unfortunately, so these issues are happening with more regularity. So I would probably stop here, but say something very important before the end, and this is that we are partners. We are partners. We are preparing the European legislation and the suggestions, so how we can work together, and all those testimonials that I've been listening here today and my colleagues online, so are extremely important, because we don't have the recipe that we are simply drafting on the table. So we need to see also with you what is working, what are the good practices, what is not working, so what's more sensitive, how to approach it. So that's why we are here listening to you. And yes, if we can give a nice present to the International Day of Girl tomorrow, so let's be the partners in this run together again. But I think that Virginia from the INTPA Directorate General has more important messages also worldwide on the globe, so I will, with due permission, Madam Chair, so we'll pass the floor and microphone to Virginia. Merci beaucoup.
Thank you. Thanks a lot. Thanks a lot. For the one who don't understand our big house, because we work in a very big house, so I work on external relation, international partnership, what it's called DG International Partnership, DG INTPA, and I work in the gender equality team. So what we do is to coordinate policy, our policy on gender equality, on children, kids' rights, and on youth. And to also implement program and projects. So we work with our delegation in 125 countries, and we push them to do more for gender equality and for girls' rights. So I prepared some notes, but now I'm also thinking that I might not be so relevant. So let me try to be more synthetical. So I will just share a few information on our policy frameworks, which might be of interest for you, because the policy framework for us, it's really the engine which generates action. No, it's not just blah, blah, blah. It's what influences what we do with our financing instrument, which can really change things on the ground. And I have to say that thanks to what the work done also by our colleagues in DG Just, we have now a very strong policy on gender equality, which has been developed under the gender equality strategy mentioned before by Irene. So what we call the Gender Action Plan number 3, which was adopted end of 2020, has generated a lot of energy, I have to say. No, of course, I listen to you. I share your concern on the backlash. We all agree on it. But from our perspective, just to share also some positive vibes, we feel a lot of energy. Among the system, within our delegation, at country level, a lot of engagement. And what we do is expanding. So the Gender Action Plan number 3 has generated in each country a strategy. which was developed with civil society, in partnership with civil society, with women organizations, and with member states. So we have, I would say, 127 small country-level clips, a country-level implementation plan. And these are our compass to guide political dialogue, so our political work in close partnership with the EAS, the External Action Services, and our programs, our funding. And also our blending, our innovative fundings portfolio, which is very important. One of the main engagement of this Gender Action Plan is working more with civil society organizations, listening more, and funding more. And I can tell you, we are monitored and accountable on this. So we count every action, every dialogue, whatever we do, everything is monitored. And we are very serious about how we do it. So out of this country-level action, we see that more than 110 countries have selected gender-based violence as a priority. So this means that they have a plan, they have a number of actions they implement in the coming years, they have dialogue with government, with civil society, they go together, all member states, jointly to speak to the authority. So I think there is a lot of concrete development. So if I speak on Sierra Leone, you had a colleague from there. There we are planning a program of around 15 million euro on gender-based violence, on FGM and on child marriage. In Gambia, the same. We are working on secondary education and on using education as a barrier, as a tool against violence, against child marriage. So this is what we are doing with our, bilateral envelopes. So, this is a bit the name of the game now. We work at country level, so a lot of our funds now pass through this channel. But we are also engaging massively through global programs and regional programs. And I'm sure that many of you have listened and have heard about the Spotlight Initiative. Spotlight Initiative is an unprecedented program of 500 million euros focused on gender-based violence and implemented with the United Nations. Under the Spotlight programs, we are having great results on ending child marriage and on FGM. Engaging with civil society, because they are the main implementers at the end of the day. Engaging with traditional leaders, with religious leaders. We spoke a lot about backlash. Using innovative approaches. And I will share just a few results, just to give a sense of the framework of our action. So we have a joint program on ending child marriage within the Spotlight, which has reached out to 2.6 million adolescents, providing life skills and sexuality education. 16 million community members, including adolescent boys and girls, have been engaged in dialogue and action. 1.1 million boys and men were also involved in dialogue and education sessions. 55 million individuals were reached by traditional mass media and social media. We have 60,000 service delivery points who delivered quality adolescent responsive services. Just a few figures with a spotlight on adolescent. The joint program on eliminating FGM provided more than 500,000 girls and women with services in healthcare, in social welfare, and access to justice to prevent FGM. More than 3.4 million people across around 4,000 communities made public declaration against FGM. 200,000 adolescents gained skills and knowledge to advocate their rights. You can find a lot on the web if you look at this joint program. And last point, within the Spotlight initiative, we have built with the UN a platform, a knowledge a sharing platform, which is called Shine, a knowledge app, and you get it shine.org. This is a very, I would say, very sophisticated, well done tool to exchange and to reach out for partners at country level, at local level. One of its main characteristics is instant translation in 55 languages. So it's really meant to reach out and to connect stakeholders, to work more in partnership, and to, I would say, to value this incredible experience which has been gained through the Spotlight Initiative. So we are now continuing to work on it, and we will present Shine, and we will invite, I think, organize an event on it around the 25th of November. We're very proud of this new tool. To conclude, I think I absolutely happy to have listened to all of you today. I think it's always a pleasure to be together, and as Irene mentioned before, we really need to work in partnership and to cross views and experiences. But I mean, from my message is that yes, the situation is very worried, of course, but I also feel a lot of positive energy around. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Virginia. Thank you to all. Now, we don't have time, that's why I'm not here to make remarks. Je vais donner la parole à Mme Viviane, qui est parlementaire au Parlement bruxellois, président de l'Observatoire féministe des violences faites aux femmes depuis 2004.
Merci beaucoup.
I will now give the floor to Viviane Teitelbaum from the Brussels Parliament, President of the Observatoire féministe des violences faites aux femmes since 2004.
Cette journée importante parce qu'en fait, ces journées symboliques, ces journées internationales sont une occasion pour échanger, sont une occasion en fait pour attirer l'attention sur les problèmes qui sont très prégnants. Et les droits des filles, les violences faites aux filles sont évidemment un sujet qui nous touche beaucoup. En tant que femme politique, c'est évidemment une occasion pour réitérer l'engagement face à cette responsabilité qu'on a de contribuer à construire ce monde qu'on rêve meilleur pour les futures générations. Alors, c'est aussi une occasion pour exprimer cette solidarité internationale, que ce soit vis-à-vis des jeunes filles iraniennes, afghanes, mais aussi dans les conflits comme en Ukraine, où elles sont toujours des victimes de viol, le viol institué, comme arme de guerre. Elles sont victimes de beaucoup de choses, et c'est évidemment important de souligner ça. Et quand on parle des droits des filles qui sont menacées, ces fillettes qui sont abîmées, c'est évidemment une maltraitance. Quand on parle de mutilation, quand on parle de viol, que ce soit dans le mariage, hors mariage ou à travers ces mariages précoces, ces mariages forcés, en fait on parle de féminicide. C'est de ça qu'on parle. Quand Diane Russell, en 76, a parlé de féminicide, la première fois, c'était évidemment par rapport à ces femmes qui sont mortes sous les coups, sous les blessures, mais c'est aussi, par exemple, suite à ces mutilations sexuelles, parce que comment est-ce qu'on peut vivre quand la vie est détruite par ces actions-là? C'est un meurtre aussi, c'est un féminicide, parce que femme. Et donc, voilà, quand on détruit la vie de ces filles, c'est pas seulement parce qu'on est victime de ces stéréotypes sexuels, parce qu'on est dans des rôles assignés, parce qu'on est victime de ces préjugés, c'est parce qu'on porte atteinte de manière directe au corps des femmes et des filles. Et ça, il faut le rappeler à tout moment. Beaucoup de choses ont été dites, donc je ne vais pas répéter parce que c'était des choses importantes. Et bon anniversaire aux GAMS, je l'ai oublié aussi, évidemment. C'est important, c'est vraiment important le travail que vous faites, et on s'en inspire au niveau politique très souvent et beaucoup, il faut le dire aussi, parce que c'est évidemment quelque chose d'essentiel. Alors c'est vrai qu'on a des plans d'action contre les violences, et bien entendu que dans ces plans d'action contre les violences, il y a la lutte contre les mariages précoces, les mariages forcés, mais en même temps on se rend compte que c'est dans les plans violences, mais au niveau par exemple communal, dans beaucoup de communes, je ne dis pas du tout à la ville de Bruxelles, mais dans beaucoup de municipalités en tout cas, même à Bruxelles, on se rend compte que l'information n'est pas passée, que les personnes qui sont en charge dans les communes et qui font face à ces femmes ne savent pas comment réagir, ne savent pas identifier la situation en amont. Et donc très souvent, malheureusement, on arrive trop tard. Dans les plans de violence, on retrouve aussi la lutte contre les mutilations sexuelles, bien entendu. Après, il faut mettre les moyens. Ces moyens manquent très souvent. Par exemple, pour les actions de sensibilisation, pour la diffusion des informations sur comment trouver les services, comment sont-ils accessibles, où sont-ils accessibles. On se rend compte que ces plans violents, c'est très souvent un catalogue de bonnes intentions et c'est important qu'ils soient là. C'est important que ce soit que les lois existent, que ces plans existent. Mais après, il faut mettre en place les outils qui permettent de toucher les personnes. Et ça, malheureusement, ça manque encore très souvent. Comment former les acteurs locaux, que ce soit pour les mariages précoces, les mariages forcés, ou que ce soit par rapport aux mutilations sexuelles. On a des réseaux à Bruxelles de lutte contre les mutilations dans les domaines des actions, dans le domaine de l'action sociale et de la famille. Mais on se rend compte en parallèle, par exemple, que sous couvert de correction vaginale, de bienveillance, certains médecins pratiquent encore aujourd'hui l'excision. Alors, ils ne vont pas faire une clitoridectomie, mais ils vont faire une ablation du capuchon du clitoris. Mais évidemment, à ce moment-là, ils ne violent pas la loi. Mais qu'est-ce qu'ils font? C'est qu'ils permettent à une pratique de continuer à trouver une légitimité. Ils permettent à des personnes de continuer à penser que ce n'est pas si mal. Et donc, c'est un énorme danger, bien évidemment. Et quand on se rend compte que ce sont des médecins qui collaborent à ça, qui pratiquent cela, on se dit que vraiment, il faut travailler encore plus fort pour rendre cette idée, cette pratique totalement inacceptable aussi auprès des personnes qui normalement sont éclairées et qui devraient pouvoir y répondre de manière beaucoup plus forte. Alors, quelque chose qui est évidemment très important au niveau politique local, régional, belge, c'est la prévention. La Convention d'Istanbul, bien évidemment, c'est un des 4 P, mais c'est mettre un terme aux stéréotypes, à cette idée, comme je l'ai dit, de cette manière d'accepter les choses. Mais c'est aussi mettre en place un système de dépistage par tous les intervenants médicaux. Alors je sais qu'aujourd'hui encore, le débat, il faut faire tomber ces tabous parce que le débat sur l'examen des organes génitaux externes des petites filles, c'est encore quelque chose qui trop souvent, on dit non mais c'est très stigmatisant. Et il y a des moyens de ne pas de déstigmatiser ça. On peut demander un examen toutes les petites filles, de tous les petits garçons. Et à ce moment-là, ce ne sont pas uniquement les petites filles qui sont d'origine immigrée, qui sont détectées. Voilà, et tout le monde passe par la même chose. Mais ça permet de prévenir, ça permet de faire attention. Il faut envisager cette prévention de la maltraitance sous la forme d'une chaîne forte. Et j'ai vraiment envie de redire ça, qu'il soit constitué à tous les différents niveaux de pouvoir. Et ça part du pouvoir local, ça part des municipalités jusqu'à l'Europe. Et cette chaîne-là, elle doit être renforcée. Il faut, et ici, c'est vraiment important, ce dialogue, il existe, mais trop souvent, il est absent. Et donc, cette chaîne, elle n'existe pas de manière systématique. Et donc, ça, c'est vraiment quelque chose d'important à mettre en place. Si je pouvais donner un conseil et plaider pour une chose, ce serait vraiment travailler sur cette chaîne-là. Que ce soit par rapport à la détection, que ce soit par rapport à la formation des professionnels. C'est vraiment important que ces deux éléments soient mis ensemble de manière systématique, j'ai envie de dire. Renforcer aussi la transmission de l'information. C'est important quand on a des enfants qui vont dans une école, parents qui sont d'origine immigrée, de pays qui sont sensibles, on le sait. Ces enfants, quand ils changent d'école, il n'y a souvent pas de transmission du dossier. Donc l'information reste à un endroit, que ce soit par rapport à l'ONE, que ce soit par rapport à l'école. Alors on me dit oui, mais c'est dangereux. Non, c'est pas dangereux. Il y a le secret professionnel qui peut faire en sorte que l'information soit protégée, mais qu'elle circule, que le dossier suive l'enfant. on le fait quand on va chez le médecin. Moi, aujourd'hui, quand je vais chez le médecin, il a accès à l'ensemble de mon dossier. Il faudrait que pour les petites filles qui sont à risque, ce dossier soit protégé dans les données, mais soit aussi transportable et puisse être et que les personnes qui reprennent le dossier, j'ai envie de dire, la vie de ces petites filles soit informée aussi des risques et des dangers. Et peut-être une dernière chose que j'ai envie de plaider, c'est vrai que je suis une femme politique, mais je suis une féministe militante engagée. Je suis aujourd'hui la présidente européenne du Conseil international des femmes. J'ai été présidente du lobby européen des femmes. Et je voudrais vraiment vous demander par rapport à cette directive européenne d'être à l'écoute des associations, des associations de femmes, des associations féministes. C'est vrai qu'il y a énormément de bonnes choses dans cette directive. Je l'ai lu attentivement. Je fais partie de celles qui ont préparé des amendements par rapport à ça, parce que c'est vrai qu'il y a beaucoup de choses encore à travailler, à discuter peut-être. Et donc voilà, si cette journée peut aussi servir au dialogue par rapport à ça, à la transmission d'informations, je serais vraiment très reconnaissante et je voudrais vraiment vous remercier toutes et tous pour tout ce qu'on a appris aujourd'hui et pour votre engagement aussi par rapport à ce dossier.
Pour la dernière
Thank you.
Je sais qu'on vous attend la salle.
Viviane. And the last person who will take the floor, last but not least,
elle va nous faire, elle va nous faire la fin. Donc elle va tout nous, voilà.
Lydia.
Voilà. Alors, Madame Lydia Mutiabele, qui est échevine.
Take the floor next. Lydia
Mutiabele,
échevine.
Égalité des chances.
At the municipality of Brussels,
du logement public.
From the Department for Equal Opportunity, Housing and Public Heritage.
Depuis que je l'ai rencontrée, je pense qu'elle fait tout pour aider les associations de terrain sur la ville de Bruxelles, vraiment de leur donner l'opportunité, de leur ouvrir les portes et de leur montrer que nous sommes aussi, voilà, on est soutenus, nous sommes aussi des citoyennes de Bruxelles-Ville et que nous devons participer au développement de cette ville à ses côtés.
And we need to take part in the development of this municipality, of this city, and stand by the sides of people like Lydia.
Réunir et qui nous accueille ici au Parlement. Et je voudrais également féliciter toutes les intervenantes et panélistes.
For having me here today, and I'd like to thank all the people who have taken the floor so far.
C'est tellement riche et
there has been so much content and so many remarks.
Et je voudrais remercier
it is really interesting to share all the experience. I would like to thank the organizers of this interesting afternoon session, No Peace Without Justice, and I have followed a course, a training course at No Peace Without Justice, and that was really helpful.
Et c'était important pour moi de le spécifier aujourd'hui parce qu'on parle des jeunes filles.
At present, we are dealing with
je vais avoir 21 ans.
Girls.
Je suis née au Congo.
And I
was
born in Congo.
Je suis arrivée ici par regroupement familial, donc déménagement de mes parents.
When my parents moved to Brussels, it is true that every family has its own history of migration. My father was an engineer. I had no problem at all. I was so happy to be in Brussels, and I completed my studies in the year 2000, magna cum laude. I wanted to be a lawyer because I understood that there was so much discrimination. I didn't understand why.
Et je comprends pas pourquoi on veut pas m'engager. Et je comprends pas pourquoi je ne trouve pas de stage.
I didn't understand why I couldn't find any internship or any traineeship courses. Nobody wanted me. And so I then contacted No Peace Without Justice, and I followed a course, and I could then I was so lucky to be then engaged at the Department for Equal Opportunities and be capable at a very young age, at 21, to really walk the corridors of the European Parliament.
Parce que quand j'ai pas trouvé de travail, je me suis engagée.
And when actually I didn't find any job, and I felt I was being discriminated against, I actually worked for an association in which we had a chance to meet the Nobel laureate for peace in 2004 and the Nobel laureate for peace in 2008. And you know that there are so many rapes that are perpetrated in northern Congo, and young girls are most often the victims of these abuses. So that is a problem on which we haven't found any solution yet. It is always important when referring to female genital mutilations and violence against women in Congo and in all countries at war in Iraq to understand that rape is a war weapon that is still used at present. So as a former activist and as a politician, I continue to lobby and to campaign for this subject, because when referring to violence, to rapes or early marriages and FGMs, we are referring to something that is related to the right to women's right, the right to life, the right to not be abused, not be ill-treated, the right to good health, the right to non-discrimination, the right to develop one's life, the right to implement and fulfill one's dreams. The speakers before me have really delivered wonderful speeches on FGMs, on the health, but also social and psychological consequences on girls of FGMs. The former Minister of Equal Opportunities is accompanying the Association of Women who are working in the field. In my presentation, as I am in charge of housing, I was told that I should really stress this, because in my area of competence, I work in this field specifically. And I was talking to a member of parliament who was sitting next to me, and she was telling me about a young girl who was 18 years of age, was looking for accommodation, and I was really surprised. I said, why isn't she actually living with her parents? She said to me, no, we were born in Brussels. So what she meant is that communities live in a different way. The different communities are respectful of the rights of the different communities. And I said, how can a young girl aged 18 be looking for accommodation to live with her partner, who is an adult man from Brussels? So actually, I said to myself, this girl should really be encouraged to complete her studies, to train, to follow some training courses. So I was really surprised. And then I had a chance to meet her woman who had sent his son to Guinea to marry a girl from Guinea. And that young man had been living in Guinea, and he had been raised in Brussels. And so I was quite surprised to understand that actually he was actually being sent to Guinea to marry. So I apologized. I said it is not actually my role as a politician to interfere, but I actually felt that there was a very peculiar situation. So I said to her mother that she had created this situation of urgency. So there are several young girls who find themselves in the streets looking for accommodation, and so I find solutions for them. There are young girls who stop studying and have no chance in life, who are often victims of intermarriage violence, and sometimes are also subject to early pregnancy. And these situations come under my eyes every day, on a daily basis. And that's why we have decided to create this day that is devoted to FGM, to try and raise the awareness of the public at large. And we have put a giant clitoris to show people what is actually done. There were so many men who were very curious, and I realized that women who are victims of feminine genital mutilations are not always aware. So what we should ask ourselves is, what are we doing to go visit them in their neighbors? We need to inform. And how do we inform in Brussels? Thanks to our department, we put a fund available. We make a fund available for information, because it is true that sometimes we are covered by a sort of scarf on our eyes, and we should really carry out this work at all levels. We need to work with the civil society and with the associations, because the associations have the tools. I, as a politician, I do not know where to find all of those young girls, but you, the associations of civil society work in the field, really know them, know how and where to find them, which are their prerogatives, how to find them, how to reach out to them, and how to include them. So I really wish to thank all the women and men who work in society, because it is thanks to you that we have some figures and highlights, and we know how to work, and we know how to always push a little bit further. So thank you very much for organizing this interesting meeting and giving me the opportunity to give you our assessment of the situation in Brussels.
Thank you very much for this last intervention. Now, before to give the floor for the conclusion to Pierrette, I want just to ask to the floor if anyone wants to raise a hand for 60 seconds of intervention. I know that there is a request, and so I please to be very, very short, because we are really limited with the time. Thank you. Please, if you can also present yourself.
Thank you very much for giving me the opportunity to speak or raise a concern for a few seconds. I will not take more than a few seconds. Madam President has mentioned Bangladesh, but I would like to elaborate something a little bit. What I have got a message today from a victim of gross violation of human rights. as a lawyer, I myself is a lawyer, my name is Mohammed Mullah, I'm a barrister based in the UK. According to my understanding of international law, which is a forced prostitution which can be termed as a crime against humanity, couple of victims has sent me a letter that they are victims of forced prostitution by the ruling regime members. And the perpetrators are not being prosecuted because perpetrators belong to the ruling regime. So as I have to finish very quickly, international community should watch out this matter and they should take necessary steps, and Bangladesh should not be ignored. And I also to conclude that the rights of Bangladeshi girls are also human rights. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
For sure. Thank you. Thank you for your intervention. I'm sorry if I've been very strict with the time, but really we have taken more than 2 hours, and I think it was a very rich debate. Please, Pierrette Herzberger-Fofana, member of the European Parliament from the Green Group, and member of the Women Committee, and activist on human rights since many, many years. Please.
Bon, alors quand on est la dernière appareil, tout a été dit pratiquement. Je vais résumer tout simplement ce qui a été dit. Et je vais d'abord commencer par remercier bien sûr les
First of all, I should like to thank the organizers and the speakers, and of course, happy birthday to GAMS, because we are here to celebrate the 40th anniversary. I followed the 40 years since it was based in Germany, and it was said, well, there's no FGMs in Germany, everything is good, it's a democratic country. But you know Germany better than me. This is not the case, and we've seen also FGMs in Germany. I would like to do a summary because Cathy said something. In 1999, I was here when Emma Bonino met the Association for Research and Development of Women, and so it was in 1999 that Cathy came to share a story before this was put into a writing, into a book, and we watched a film for the first time about FGMs, and we were crying, the two of us, because I've heard of FGMs, but never seen, and there were many other who cooperated with us. And we in Germany, our work was to be involved. We were involved well before France, because everybody was convinced that we were just telling lies. This was a tradition, and people said, but she must be crazy, she's mad. And Africans were the first ones to say, you are giving a bad, negative image of Africa. Instead, our traditions are not like this. So I heard this. It exists, and it still exists. Women from Africa that are victims of these practices. There's been this very big campaign in Germany. It was truly a scandal, and I protested against this. I rebelled because there were billboards in all the roads of cities and towns in Germany with shocking pictures, photos. So the result was that we were in favor of abolishing, and in that case we had to protect, but we had to react, and we said, but this is a mere racism, and unfortunately this phenomenon continues. So what can we do when many organizations
En Allemagne, on
in
connaît
Germany,
pas l'Afrique. Hein. Vous savez, l'Afrique, c'est on monte tous dans les
they are
arbres,
not knowledgeable about
on mange
Africa.
encore par terre. Enfin, c'est une image qui existe malheureusement
think
au XXIe
that
siècle.
people are
Donc,
wild
il a
there
fallu
and
faire
eat
comment un travail
on the
d'abord
floor
auprès des
with their hands.
celles aussi qui
So
étaient animées de bonnes intentions. Je ne dis
there
pas
were
qu'elles
also
n'étaient pas
people
animées
with
de bonnes
very good
intentions.
intentions.
Et maintenant,
I'm not
j'ai fait le
saying
grand
there
bond.
were not.
Qu'est-ce qu'on a fait? le gouvernement, et avec une association que je parraine, a sorti ce qu'on appelle la lettre de protection. C'est ce que je voulais montrer, mais malheureusement, il m'a wanted to share this with you, but I was not able to print out from my computer. So the government, with an association, produced the so-called letter of protection, where toutes celles qui veulent avoir la brochure, je peux l'envoyer
for those who would like to receive this, I will be sending you off the mail. But this was to protect young girls, child girls, because there are laws, and there are laws in all countries of Europe, and Germany was the last one to be equipped with a piece of legislation against
cette loi-là est sortie en 2013. Elle a été modifiée en 2018, c'est-à-dire modifiée de telle façon que les filles qui vont au pays, si elles sont excisées au pays, les parents sont sanctionnés en Allemagne. Alors que dit la lettre de protection?
Mutilated in their countries, parents can be sanctioned in Germany. Well, this is a tool for many parents to say, we do not have the possibility to say no to the family, to the grandma. So in this letter of protection, it is said if your daughter is mutilated with your consent, you will be sanctioned. You cannot work, and of course you cannot send remittances to your countries. And we've seen the first results, and it works because we have highlighted the health issues that these women may undergo as a result of mutilations in Senegal, but also in other countries. And many Africans said there's never been any issues. Where are all these girls ruined and with bad health due to evictions, due to mutilations? But we presented the data in our letter, and this was to protect child girls. So it was said, if I'm mutilated in my country, my family abroad will undergo these very difficult situations. So this letter of protection can be adapted and amended in other countries, like in France, in Italy, in Belgium. Situations vary from one country to another. So this letter can be changed. So this was produced with in a partnership between the government and an association, but the implementation is always difficult. So in Germany, we would like practical implementation, and this was the work of an organization cooperating with the government. I was in Berlin last Saturday, and we had
un événement qui s'appelait Decolonize FGM. Le grand problème que l'on a en Allemagne, c'est que ce sont les grandes organisations qui sont financées.
The big issue we have in Germany is that only big organizations are funded. It is very difficult to fund or for small associations to gather funds. So without funds, it's a big issue. So I think that we'll be able to try and find a way out. As my colleague said, a couple of weeks ago I was in Ethiopia, and I heard about the Spotlight program that the European Union is earmarking 500 million euros, and there are African countries, and to my surprise, there's Nigeria. I could never have imagined that Nigeria was part of this Spotlight program, because we have many Nigerians that are exploited, that are trafficked and abused. But I have also to say another thing. We at the European Parliament, we've done something. Around 2020, we have voted a resolution. This was voted rightly here in the European Parliament, and I was the rapporteur for my party, for our party. And when we voted the resolution to put an end to genital mutilations in Europe, it was approved at almost unanimity vote. 612 voted in favor and 7 voted against. So I think that this is unprecedented, and 32 abstained. So there's work that has been done. Of course, the problem comes with the implementation. This is the big issue, and due to the effects of the pandemic, everybody talked about marriage, forced marriage, early marriage, arranged marriage. When I was in Kenya, I met a lot of young girls who said, we are in favor of sexual education. How you, the Europeans, how can you help you? I was a part of the Development Commission, and in our post-Cotonou agreements with Africa, we've included this, and we asked, and I wrote the amendment. So on request of young African girls, child girls and adolescents who said that this is an issue to us. So there's always a reason for not being married, and so there's a need to understand this. And so they asked us, so we included this amendment, and now it's up to African countries to implement this, because we have developed a new policy following the same wavelength than your needs, but then you have to implement it, and if it works, it will be very, very positive. Now, we've also talked here about the consent culture, and it is thanks to this culture in all the countries there's a shift from the child girl to the adult woman without considering the importance of adolescents, of teenagers. And this is true of specific communities like the Turkish community, for example, and others. And there's a need to have a political willingness. It should be everywhere. If member states are not willing to put an end to arranged marriages, early marriages, child marriages, and FGMs, will get nowhere. So there's a need for legislation, and this is here in this brochure that we prepared for our mission in Ethiopia. And this was supposed to explain the 27 member countries do have laws, but there's a need to explain, because as long as people are not knowledgeable, many communities, for example, if I take the example of Malian or Senegalese communities, these communities don't even know that there is legislation, and there's a law against mutilations, excisions, but until we have cases in Germany, it's difficult to accept. There's the so-called silence culture. And due to this silence culture, there are those who cover these phenomena. So if we still have the same results for this year, we'll see that there have been no girl that went back to her country of origin to be mutilated. So as we said, there's a need for education, for support, and here I would like to congratulate all the associations from GAMS to the very latest associations that were developed in Germany. They all do extraordinary work. They are very committed, and very, very often this is not recognized as this work is not recognized, and this is the reason why I always say this work needs to be recognized. These people, these associations need to be recognized, and so for this reason I asked that
many
women from our region could be awarded prizes because these are hardly working women and they need to be recognized. And there are many women working, and I said I fully agree with all the speakers, and we need to do our best for the work of associations to be fully recognized, and I would like these women to contact us if they need something. I'm always ready to support. I've done so for the last 40 years, and I would like you to work locally on the spot, and this work should be recognized. So one day you may say in 2030 we have the total abolishment of FGMs in Germany. Thank you very much, and sorry for going so quick.
Merci à tout le monde d'être venu, particulièrement.
So thank you very much. Thank you all for coming.
Merci aux députés qui nous ont
thank you for all who traveled from afar. Thank you for the MPs who opened their gates. Thank you to the Commission members who are here. Thank you to the Brussels MPs, European MPs, and Pierrette. Once again, thank you very much for your commitment, and let's continue to fight against this, and thank you to Laïcité Yallah, thank you GAMS France.
Voilà, c'est ça. Hein? Et juste pour vous dire que, pour conclure, je pense qu'ensemble, nous,
I think that together, all of us, associations or politicians, if we do not work together, we will not get there. And we have always cried, the others and myself, and you said so, the big associations are funded, but the local and small associations do not have enough means for them to work. And if local associations are in contact with families or households who do not have enough money to work and to take a car to go and contact parents, we are...
Continuons à nous soutenir, à nous mobiliser pour la sauvegarde des acquis sur les droits humains et surtout pour la dignité des femmes et des filles, pour l'avenir et pour notre futur nous-mêmes. Laissez les filles grandir, avoir une enfance, une jeunesse, une adolescence pour pouvoir devenir une mère, une épouse, ou si elles le veulent rester célibataires à vie, c'est leur problème, c'est leur corps, c'est leur mentalité. Voilà. Merci à vous tous. Merci Gianfranco, merci pour toujours. Merci. Merci. Toute l'équipe de nos PIS. Monsieur, ça fait des années qu'il est avec nous. Partout nous allons. Merci beaucoup, toute l'équipe de nos PIS. Et vraiment, pardon à toutes les personnes qui sont devant la porte. Pardon, mille pardons. En cours, oui. On va, je pense que Stéphane, on va aller faire une photo là. Oui. Oui, c'est pour ça qu'on doit sortir. On ramasse tout ça.